Hello and welcome to this video. I'll share with you two interesting stories of people with different problems and the bizarre conclusions to their stories. A little warning though. The second story mentions someone trying to end their life. If you are struggling, please reach out to professionals or people you trust for help. There's too much darkness in this world and we can't afford to lose your light. Viewer discretion is advised. On a frigid November night in 1815, a lone carriage rattled through the dark, desolate roads of Ostfold. Inside, Halvor Olsen was transporting a precious cargo, a heavy sack of mail, and a substantial amount of money. Little did Halvor know this seemingly routine journey would soon take a perilous turn. Unbeknownst to him, mail carriages like his were irresistible targets for thieves lurking in the shadows. As he journeyed onward, the encounter with a mysterious figure would thrust him into a deadly game of survival. His life was about to hang in the balance. The shadowy figure was Brede Nord, born in Grue, Norway, in 1777. Early on, Brede realized that the monotonous life of farm work was not for him. Drawn to the allure of a more thrilling existence, he descended into a life of crime at a young age. By 1815, his illegal activities had caught up with him. Facing hefty fines and legal costs for his shady dealings, he urgently needed money. He decided to rob an incoming mail carriage, transporting mail as well as some of the government's money. As the carriage approached under the cover of darkness, its driver, Halvor Olsen, spotted Brede and called out, "Who are you? What do you want?" With a chilling calm, Brede replied, "You're about to find out." He then viciously attacked Halvor with a fence post, beating him relentlessly until Halvor lay motionless. Dragging the carriage into the concealment of the forest, Brede ensured no passing witnesses would interrupt his heist. He tore open letters, greedily extracting all the cash inside. To his immense satisfaction, his brutal endeavor yielded a staggering 2,400 Riksbank dollar, a sum equivalent to approximately $8,000 to $9,000 in today's money. Brede quickly stuffed as much cash into his pockets as he could carry, before concealing the remaining loot in a hidden spot deep within the forest. Halvor eventually regained consciousness, finding himself alone and disoriented. Unable to do much due to his injuries, he let the horse take him back to their starting point. There he collapsed and was bedridden for weeks, recovering from the brutal beating he had endured. Despite a substantial 1,000 Riksbank dollar reward, the crime remained unsolved for a considerable time. When spring arrived, Brede returned to reclaim the rest of his hidden fortune. However, his troubles were far from over. Legal fees and fines were mounting, and a looming currency change by the government threatened to render his stolen money worthless. The new currency transition meant that Brede couldn't simply exchange the bills at a bank due to the identifiable serial numbers. So now, Brede found himself back at square one. However, an opportunity soon emerged. Receiving a tip about a significant amount of money being transported, Brede positioned himself strategically by the side of the road, close to the scene of his previous crime. As the carriage approached, Brede's keen eyes spotted the driver, accompanied by a Norwegian soldier, his saber gleaming, ready to defend against another robbery at the same notorious spot. Realizing he was outnumbered and outgunned, Brede chose not to engage in a fight where he was at a disadvantage. Undeterred, Brede followed the carriage from a safe distance. After passing Melås, which today is the Norwegian city Moss, the soldier was dismissed, leaving the driver vulnerable. Brede saw his opportunity and and continued his pursuit. By the time the carriage reached Bjølsund, Brede was ready. He approached the carriage again, this time asking to hitch a ride, but was rejected. Stealthily, he continued to track the carriage as it moved past Riga, where the driver was replaced by a teenage boy. Determined and relentless, Brede sprinted to catch up with the carriage. Despite his tattered clothes and worn-out shoes, his resolve was unshakable. Along the way, several people noticed his desperate run, and even the town guard attempted to follow him. In his haste, Brede dropped his gun, which the guard later recovered. As he finally closed in on the carriage, having run almost 10 miles without taking a break, Brede shouted for it to stop. The teenage driver, sensing danger, urged the horse to go faster, but it was too late. Brede's speed and determination paid off. He clambered onto the moving carriage and, with a metal rod in hand, viciously beat the poor boy into submission. He slid open the mail sack with his knife and rummaged through it, struck by his incredible luck. Inside, he found a fortune, not just any money, but the new currency. Each note was worth 10 times more than the old currency. He had come away with an equivalent of about $50,000 today. With this windfall, he not only had enough to settle his legal troubles, but also some left over. Later, the teenager woke up alone and disoriented, but managed to guide the horse to Karlshus, where he alerted the authorities. The crime didn't go unnoticed. Unlike before, many witnesses had seen what they described as a well-dressed man running at night, and the city guard had found his gun. Recognizing Brede, the guard's suspicions led to a search of Brede's house. There, they discovered bullets identical to those found with the gun. Brede was apprehended the following morning, and both his sister and wife were taken in for questioning. Despite the evidence, Brede denied any involvement. Fearing he might attempt an escape using his connections, authorities transferred him to a prison far from his hometown. As the interrogations progressed, Brede's account began to change. He now confessed to being out at night. Additionally, his sister, Inger, was being bribed by authorities to testify against him. She admitted to witnessing him with a large sum of money shortly after the initial mail carriage robbery and implicated his wife, alleging she had seen her hiding the cash. Subsequent searches of his house yielded more of the missing money, totaling just over half the amount stolen. Brede's wife confessed and blamed him, alleging he manipulated her. Meanwhile, his own narratives grew increasingly unbelievable. He initially claimed he went out to buy a fire ladder, but later spun tales of rowing around a lake at night between different farms, attempting to purchase potatoes. However, no one could corroborate his stories. The police went as far as dressing Brede in the same attire he wore on the night of the crimes, and had witnesses from both mail carriage incidents identify him. All witnesses confirmed his presence. Furthermore, the gun was linked to him. Despite his attempts to deny involvement, Brede showed signs of cracking under pressure when questioned, acknowledging that he couldn't escape his actions, but also refusing to fully admit guilt. They got him drunk and took him back to the scene of the crime, where he started screaming and crying. He admitted everything. In later interrogations, he tried blaming everyone, from the people who reported him to the mail service for his crime. The 18th of March, the Supreme Court of Norway gave a verdict on his case related to the robbery charges before his mail carriage robberies, the ones he had tried to get money to pay for. They found him innocent. However, just 2 months later, he received the verdict for his mail carriage robberies. He was sentenced to death, and his application for a pardon was denied by the King Regent. And so, Brede Nord was executed on August 28th for his recent crimes. Why was Brede sentenced to death? He hadn't fatally harmed the mail carriers or attempted to do so. He had even been acquitted of some earlier crimes. There was another man who a few years later murdered his son by poison and received a pardon due to extenuating circumstances, the King Regent stating that he believed the murderer was fundamentally a good person. So why wasn't Brede pardoned? Because he had committed the unpardonable sin. He had stolen from the crown. A lot of the money from both robberies belonged to the government. There's a theory about why this was taken so seriously. It's believed that the Norwegian government faced two options when dealing with people attempting to steal funds: investing in security for every transport, or resorting to executing criminals to deter others from stealing from the mail carriages. They found the latter to be the more economical choice. In the end, it wasn't a matter of human life, but money that determined Brede's fate. The U-505 was, per October 1942, a German submarine with a commendable record. Until then, in the Second World War, the submarine had successfully sunk several enemy ships and had navigated through perilous waters, emerging from encounters with little more than a few scratches. In October 1942, a significant shift occurred in the leadership of the vessel as command passed to Peter Zschech. His military experience suggested a significant potential as a submarine commander. However, the promising trajectory quickly took a downturn. U-505's fourth patrol, commencing on October 4th, directed the submarine to the northern coast of South America. Departing from Lorient on the 4th of October, the U-boat set its course for the waters off the coast of Venezuela. They had a great start, sinking the British vessel Ocean Justice. However, the U-505 found itself in the crosshairs of a Lockheed Hudson Maritime Patrol aircraft from the 53rd Squadron of the Royal Air Force. The Lockheed Hudson executed a surprise attack, swooping down to just above water level and delivering a precise blow, a 250 pounds or 110 kilo bomb that landed directly on the U-boat's deck. The impact was catastrophic. The explosion claimed the life of one watch officer, and another was severely wounded in the conning tower. The force of the blast not only tore the anti-aircraft gun from its mounting, but also inflicted critical damage to the ship's pressure hull. Fortunately for the crew of the U-505, the bomber that had hit them was destroyed by the explosions it caused, making it safe for the submarine to surface. With the pumps rendered inoperative and water infiltrating the engine room through multiple breaches, the situation seemed dire. Zschech, faced with the harsh reality of a wounded vessel, ordered the crew to abandon ship. However, the technical staff, led by Chief Petty Officer Otto Fricke, had a different perspective. They were determined to salvage the vessel. Over the course of almost 2 weeks, the crew engaged in intensive repair work, making the vessel watertight despite the significant damage, and they were able to return to port with the vessel. However, this was only the start of their trials. The U-505's subsequent 4 patrols unfolded as a series of frustrating episodes, marked by premature returns due to persistent equipment failures and instances of sabotage orchestrated by French dock workers sympathetic to the resistance. Returning from one of these aborted patrols, the crew was greeted by a disheartening sign painted in the docking area that humorously read, U-505's hunting ground, mocking them for their inability to make it out to sea. The recurrent disruptions began to take a toll, not only on the submarine, but also on the morale of its crew. It all came to a head when the U-505 was on their 10th patrol. British destroyers spotted her east of the Azores around midnight on the 24th of October 1943, not long after she crossed the Bay of Biscay. The U-505 was forced to submerge and endure a severe depth charge attack. Commander Zschech was significantly affected by this and retreated to his quarters, only calling the radio man or sound man in every now and then to receive updates. The depth charge continued for many hours, yet Captain Zschech gave no orders. Over the next 20 hours, his psyche steadily declined. For For some reason, he climbed up into the conning tower, normally only used by skippers on German subs. The radio man shouted up to him that they were being scanned. All of the crew heard each ping outside the sub, threatening to reveal where they were and trap them in this underwater coffin. Finally, Captain Zschech descended from the conning tower, his face ghostly white. The crew stared at him, waiting for orders. The enemy ship was almost directly above them, and the explosions around them were much worse than before. Yet Captain Zschech remained silent, staring at the crew. Then, without saying anything, he walked into his quarters. One of the crew members described his movement as zombie-like. The explosions kept going on around them, while Captain Zschech was having a mental breakdown. Here is where we're uncertain of what occurred. The story I see being cited the most is that Zschech walked into the control room holding his pistol. Before anyone could react, he turned the gun on himself and fired. He died instantly. Then, First Watch Officer Paul Meyer quickly took command and got them out of the predicament. There is, however, a much darker version of this event given by one of the crew members in their book, Steel Boats, Iron Hearts. In this version, Zschech goes into his quarters and a gunshot is heard. A few crew members enter his quarters to find him with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. However, he survived. He was now lying in his quarters making a lot of noise. One of the crewmen, concerned this could give away their position to the enemy and jeopardize the lives of the entire crew, took a pillow and put it over the captain's face until he stopped moving. Then, like in the other story, Paul Meyer takes command and returns the U-boat to port with minimal damage. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more about this, my sources are in the description and corrections also if there are any, or you can just search for it in your favorite search engine. If you feel I deserve it, you can click the like button or subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed the video and that you'll watch my next one too.